Stranger Things Season 4 is the gift that keeps on giving, and it seems like every time we rewatch an episode, we catch some more hidden details. That's why we wanted to take a look at all the little details, references, and Easter eggs that only the die-hard fans caught. So, let's take a look. And yes, there will be Stranger Things Season 4 spoilers in this video. One of the most touching and heartwarming Easter eggs comes in poster form, with Max having a poster for the surfing documentary The Endless Summer. Not only is it a callback to Max's California roots...
You miss it?
What?
The ocean. The waves. California.
But it also is a touching tribute to her brother Billy, who is a big surfer. This is one of the early signs that Max is still grieving about the loss of her brother, something which really comes into play later on in the season, and the whole running up the hill scene, which, FYI, has led to that song going up to #1 in the charts for the first time ever. And we all go through some awkward hair phases as we grow up. I mean, look at every haircut in Goblet of Fire. And the Stranger Things kids are no different, with them all rocking some new looks. Take, for example, the new longer locks that Mike is sporting, which he has clearly grown out to match his new role model, Eddie Munson.
I'm 11, you long-haired freak.
Speaking of hairstyles, I was thinking that 11 is starting to look more and more like Winona Ryder this season, and the internet seems to agree with me, with multiple fans pointing out that 11's new hairstyle looks a lot like Joyce's. Another little nod to Joyce comes with the Reebok shoebox that 11 uses as a replica for the cabin her and Hopper lived in, with Joyce famously wearing Reeboks throughout the show. But back on the subject of hairstyles, new character Chrissy Cunningham's hair design was inspired by Olivia Newton-John's character Sandy in Grease. Running Up the Hill may be one of the most notable songs referenced in Season 4, but there are a bunch of other tracks that play some secret significance. In particular, the song titles that can be seen in the background at Penhurst. As Nancy and Robin are shown the listening room, songs such as Moonlight Serenade and Red Sails in the Sunset can be seen on the chalkboard. All of these songs have to do with dreams, which is consistent with the theme of nightmares and their link to Vecna in the latest season. It's safe to say that Will has gone through some tough times recently, like being kidnapped and entrapped in the Upside Down, and it seems like the kid can't catch a break, as apparently no one seems to remember his birthday. How do we know this? Well, in the scene where Angela and her friends torture 11 at the roller rink, you'll notice that the video recording says it's March 22nd, 1986. In Season 2, Joyce asks Will if he remembers that the 22nd of March is his birthday. But I guess she should really be asking his friends and herself, as they all seem to have totally forgotten. And that's because the Duffer Brothers admitted they forgot themselves, with Matt Duffer saying, "The honest response is, clearly like the characters in the show, we also forgot about Will's birthday." So now the debate is whether we adjust Will's birthday or we just let it be really sad. My vote is sad. In the past, we've had a field day with Pixar and them making references to the people who work on their movies. But they're not the only ones to do it, and in fact, Stranger Things did the same thing in Season 4. In the scene where Max is looking through the student files in the guidance counselor's office, you can see the names John Bonacourse and Ray Brown before Max gets to Chrissy's file. Both John and Ray work on Stranger Things as the second assistant director and key grip, respectively. Now, you may have picked up that the Hellfire Club name is a nod to the X-Men's Hellfire Club, who were a key factor in Jean Grey's Dark Phoenix story, all of which works thematically considering how often Stranger Things has flirted with those elements in Eleven's story. But did you catch the other Easter egg in there? All the way back in Season 1, Will ends up winning Dustin's X-Men issue number 134 from 1963 after their bike race. That issue just so happens to follow the X-Men as they go up against the Hellfire Club. So the reveal at the end of Season 4 Part 1 that Henry Creel was actually Vecna was a pretty shocking moment, but there was a piece of subtle foreshadowing that we totally missed. When Vecna is first introduced in the D&D campaign, it is stated that everyone thought that he was dead, just like Henry Creel, who everyone thought was killed by his own father, Victor. For the 8th entry in this video, it's only fitting that we use it to honor the one and only Kobe Bryant, who despite famously wearing the number 24 jersey, also wore the number 8, with both numbers being retired by the Lakers. In Stranger Things, Lucas has the number 8 on his jersey, and that's because Caleb McLaughlin, who is a huge Kobe fan, had the idea to pay tribute to the basketball legend in this way. Now, the Rainbow Room in Stranger Things is a lot more depressing than the name suggests, but did you notice the small attention to detail in the background? Because I didn't, but Reddit user DJM Takamine did. The piece of detail in question is the wall with the two-way mirror that has indigo on top, while the wall with the double doors has red on top, which is likely a reference to the Upside Down and the Dual Realms. Now, if there's one thing that Stranger Things likes to do, it's speculate, and one of the topics that's often bandied around is Will's sexuality, with many fans believing that Will is secretly gay. A piece of evidence being used to support this theory is the fact that Will chose famous mathematician and codebreaker Alan Turing as his hero. Turing was famously gay and was actually charged for homosexual activity, with him only just being pardoned posthumously in 2013. Now, this next one is admittedly pretty heartwarming. In the scene where Mike goes upstairs to deliver Eleven her Eggos, you'll notice that Eleven keeps her bedroom door cracked open 3 inches. This is a reference to the recurring joke and Hopper's letter where he tells her to keep the door open 3 inches every time she has Mike in her room. Someone must be cutting onions in here because my eyes are watering. Speaking of the relationship between Eleven and Mike, did anyone notice the ring that Eleven wears throughout Season 4? That ring was actually a gift given to her by Mike in between Seasons 3 and 4, showing just how important Mike is to her. Going back to Season 1 callbacks, in Season 4, Eleven lies to Mike that she has friends and hides the fact that Angela and her friends bully her. This is mirrored with a scene from Season 1, where Mike lies about being tripped up by mouth breather Trey as he didn't want Eleven to think that he was a loser, and Eleven tells him that she understands. And still on Season 1 callbacks, as Robin goes through the items in Nancy's room, she brings attention to her ballerina jewelry box. Back in Season 1, while Eleven was exploring the Wheeler house, she also focused on the ballerina jewelry box. Also in Nancy's room in both Season 1 and Season 4 was a poster of Tom Cruise because, let's face it, that guy never gets old. And sort of still on the Season 1 callbacks, in Season 4 there's a scene where Eleven crumples a Coke can with her powers, just like she did in Season 1. However, the main Easter egg here is that the can says Classic Coke, which is a reference to the Season 3 joke about New Coke, which in itself is a reference to that time in 1985 when Coca-Cola tried a new Coke formula and then changed it back to the Classic Coke one. Still on the Season 1 references, as there's a bunch of them apparently, as we mentioned, Robin and Nancy go to Penhurst Asylum to visit Victor Creel. But this isn't the first time that Penhurst is actually referenced in Stranger Things, with it initially being brought up all the way back in Season 1, when Mike, Dustin, and Lucas first find Eleven after Will's disappearance. But fans of haunted places out there may actually know that Penhurst is in fact a real and now former asylum located in eastern Pennsylvania, which closed in 1989 due to a string of controversies. Now, the place is open as a haunted attraction where you can go hunting for ghosts. Now, I tried to keep this video light on the movie references as we've actually covered this topic already on this channel, but the parallels between Season 4 and A Nightmare on Elm Street is almost impossible to ignore. Not only is the idea of a demented creature torturing teenagers through dreams straight out of Elm Street, or some of the cinematic sequences almost shot for shot, but they even brought in Freddy Krueger actor Robert Englund in as Victor Creel. But the additional Easter egg in this scene, though, is the moment where Creel starts scratching the table with his fingernails, which is a nod to the razor-sharp blades that are attached to Freddy Krueger's fingers. Admittedly another movie reference, but in the scene where Max is brought into Vecna's world, viewers can see a tombstone, which you may be forgiven for thinking says Byers, like Joyce and Will's last name. In actuality, it says Myers, a reference to the famous on-screen serial killer Michael Myers from the Halloween movie series, who Max actually ended up dressing up as for Halloween back in Season 2. Another pop culture reference comes in the scene where Jonathan tells Will and Mike about his plan to leave their house and go back to Hawkins, and refers to the two officers watching them as Ponch and John. This is, of course, a nod to Officer Jonathan Andrew Baker and Officer Francis Ponch Poncherello from the TV series Chips, which ran from 1977 to 1983. One of the biggest movies from the 80s has to be the one and only Goonies, and seeing as Stranger Things is all about 80s pop culture references, you can bet your bottom dollar that they made a shout out to the movie in Season 4. In the scene where Lucas and Max explore Victor Creel's old house, Lucas makes a joke about if he plays the piano correctly, a secret door might open.
Voila.
This is, of course, a reference to the Goonies, where Andy has to play a piano perfectly in order for the crew to find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. And finally, while the asylum scene definitely has a bunch of nods to A Nightmare on Elm Street, there is also another quite fitting one: Silence of the Lambs. In fact, the corridor and the way the scene is framed looks like it was taken straight out of the movie.